0.
Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV. We're here with Alexis Bugnolo, friar in Italy. Today we're going to talk about the controlled media. It's happening in the U.S., Italy, everywhere. Welcome, Brother Alexis.
Thank you for having me on, Andrew, and I'm glad to be on Order Militaris Radio TV, the new apostolate of Order Militaris Catholicus, an international association of Catholics that you and I founded in 2016 for the defense of persecuted Christians. So this is a great new venture we're getting into, and hopefully we'll break through this controlled media craziness that seems to be sweeping the world.
Yeah. And it is all these first we had this big old corona stuff going through the media. The numbers of the death are growing. And the numbers of the infected are growing. We can't go outside no more.
Yeah, it was like War of the Worlds radio program in the 40s or some sci-fi. I don't know how people sucked it up.
Then just the constant numbers, the constant saying people are dying. And all of a sudden, if you're on Twitter, you see the TikTok videos of the nurses dancing in the hospitals, empty. And like, what about all these deaths we're supposed to have?
Yeah,
All of a sudden,
I think independent social media totally destroyed the narrative on the COVID-19 because it was like two different worlds. What you saw on television was one reality, and then there was like a parallel universe, and social media was just exposing it as completely false and fabricated.
Yeah. CBS was running video claiming it was from New York, but it was from Italy about the hospitals.
Oh yeah, we saw that here. That was famous.
Then another one where they were burying loads of bodies, and it was some old footage out of the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Here in Italy, they were showing coffins, lines and lines of coffins, but it was a photo from like 3 years ago. So they didn't even bother to want to tell the truth. But there in Kansas, were people less affected by the media control, or were they all sucked into the TV's narrative too?
If you are in the liberal part, where it's the eastern part, or the southeast, where the liberals control the power, people were listening to the media, especially the doctors. I had an eye appointment for see how the pressure is for my spinal tap pressure shunt a few months ago. We were going through town, county, all the way to Wichita. We had stopped to get some food, drink, gas. No mask. No Kansan was wearing a mask. But if you saw out-of-towners like from Colorado, they had the mask, the face guard, the gloves. I was like, you gotta see this, Mom. You gotta see this. Watch them come out. And everybody's like, what are you doing? Then it was pure Stalinism at the eye doctor place. I told my mom I wasn't going to wear a mask. And once you step foot inside the door, you could not leave.
You could
and
not.
He's like, mm-mm.
What?
No. Then he's like, here, put this mask on. I started feeling it. I noticed thin but sharp. It was made out of fiberglass. These masks we were supposed to wear. And I like, isn't fiberglass dangerous to breathe in?
Of course it is.
And I noticed the ladies who check people in are like, and when the doctors come out to get the patients, and when the doctors are gone. So after I got all my, normal testing, eye imaging, and they didn't bring you back out to the waiting room like they normally do. And my mom usually comes back with me so she would know what's going on. They said I could bring one person back with me on their actual website. They didn't let her know I was back there. They didn't know they didn't let her know what I was doing, if I was okay. So I was sitting in the actual exam room waiting for the doctor. It was hotter than you know what back there. No AC. You were not allowed to leave the room. You could not use the bathroom. No water. And then I took the mask off because I looked in the mirror where it's in front of you. My face was turning red from the mask. And the doctor put it back on, wear it right.
Why didn't they have the air on? Were they afraid it would bring the virus in from outside?
Yes.
I mean, these people are medical professionals, don't know the first thing about medicine.
Yes. And these are the specialized eye doctors who also work with the brain.
Don't let them touch your brain. I'm sure. This is what, Wichita?
Yeah.
And Wichita is like how many people?
Few 100,000.
And it is a liberal stronghold?
Yes. Democrat mayor, Democrat police chiefs, everything.
Now, when you were going through the streets of Wichita, did you see people with masks everywhere?
No.
No. Well, the people were much saner than the East. Were people still outside as much as they normally were, or are they hiding inside?
I would have said it was somewhat normal, but the traffic was less.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people weren't driving.
Mm-hmm.
They were walking or
But
riding a bike or
in the
whatever.
countryside where you live, did you ever see anyone with a mask or gloves?
No.
So they were saying you weren't touched. It's pretty much the same here in Italy. It became like a political doctrine, and the people who are the most left-leaning, they'll wear the mask, and if they see you without a mask, they're like, you're endangering people. But it's like the new Islamic religion. You have to wear the burqa, and if you don't, you're not showing submission to the left-wing government. It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
Yeah.
And they won't let you enter supermarkets, buses, trains, post offices, banks, almost anything if you don't wear a mask. So
Yeah.
if you are a political dissenter, if you don't accept the mask, you have to go to small little food shops that allow in one person at a time and pay higher prices and stop going to the post office. You have to use FedEx, and it's just absolutely crazy. It's an attack on the whole society. It's making politics now a religion. The Constitution here in Italy was completely trashed. It means nothing anymore. It's only the political ideology of the ruling government. That's the only law left.
Yeah.
No more human rights, no more freedom of speech, no more freedom of religion. It's just what the government states. Unbelievable.
Even President Trump mentioned that the religion of scientism is taking over. They want no churches, and churches are essential. If you don't open up your churches, I will. And
what we've seen go on in the state is what's been going on in the media the last 40 years. It used to be, I remember growing up, we had the New York Times on the table every morning, and you would read different opinions in the New York Times, left and right. But as the years went long, anyone expressing an opinion that wasn't for the left, where they didn't get their letters of the editor published, there weren't news stories, and the news, like the focus of news, shrunk and shrunk and shrunk until it was all about Israel and the Democratic Party and their agenda.
Yeah.
It's almost like now we're under the dictatorship of journalism, because that's the control they have on papers, is what we see now in the state.
Yeah, it's worse here. I've never seen it before. I mean, certain elites in the media, celebrities, even certain governors or whoever is making these decisions to ban. They pulled off, let's see, live PD where the camera crew follows the cops around and shows what their job is. Then the highest ranking, longest running show ever, Cops, was on the air for 32 seasons. Was just yanked. They're going after a good cartoon shows what a good police officer is, but instead of using humans, use cartoon dogs. It's called Paw Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
They yanked that off. Now they're going after classic movies. Gone with the Wind has been banned. It is now the highest ranking DVD purchase ever. And it is all out of stock everywhere.
Why are they banning Gone with the Wind?
Because the liberals say it glorifies slavery. It glorifies the South.
That's kind of hypocritical, since the Democratic Party was the party ruling the South during the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
They always try to blame everyone else for their own things. But did you did you see the same kind of one-step mind control in Catholic media in the United States during the COVID-19, or did you see a variety of opinions?
There were two different voices of thought during the COVID. The U.S. bishops and all their media people saying, "Oh, we must go with what the Dr. Fauci's saying. We must wear the mask. We must close our churches. We must not distribute Holy Communion." That was even what Steve Skojic said of 1 Peter 5. And Mike Church blasted him about it.
Good for Mike.
And I was like, and then on the other end, where like, no, we never closed our churches during the Spanish flu. We never closed our churches during the plague. Need someone to look up to? Look up to Charles Borromeo, who still did the sacraments.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see here. We were doing some posting about it. I did some about the chaplains who were either sainthood or are on the way to becoming a sainthood, who served on the battlefield, who never stopped, teaching the faith, doing the sacraments, even while one of their battleships was sinking underneath them.
Yeah, I know St. Bernardine of Siena, when the plague hit his hometown in Aquila, he kept serving the plague victims, and his relatives all said, "You're going to bring the plague home with you." They threw him out of the house. It turns out he didn't die of the plague, but some of his relatives who refused to care for the poor did, and that was where he began his road to sanctity. But let's talk about some particular media platforms in the United States, Catholic media. Church militant, were they in favor of COVID-19 narrative, or were they criticizing?
They were criticizing it.
Right from the beginning?
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Vorse has his head on right. 1 Peter 5 can be calculated always to hold up the narrative, because most people don't know this, but Steve Skojec was like a nobody until he came. He failed in some business venture in California, Arizona, and then he went to Virginia, and with his friends in the Washington D.C. area, all of a sudden he was discovered. He got interviews with important media outlets in New York City, I think the Wall Street Journal, and all of a sudden he was someone, and that began his career. How about Dr. Taylor Marshall? Was he in favor of COVID-19, or was he criticizing?
He was, I would say, on the fence between half and half, and until he started having a simulcast with Mike Church where they would have the radio show and then they would be on at the same time. And then Mike Church was sharing what he knew about the COVID-19 stuff. And then Taylor Marshall's eyes were open, like, okay, COVID-19 bad. We don't want that.
Did he ever produce Did Marshall ever produce a program criticizing the COVID-19 narrative, though?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. I was surprised to find out today, reading his bio at Wikipedia, that he is an Episcopalian priest, and he was a married Episcopalian priest, and then in 2006 he became a Catholic. He worked in the media office of Washington D.C. Diocese, which is like probably the worst credential you could have on your resume. That's like absolute left-wing fake church there. So I'm good that he came out and finally did say some criticism, but it doesn't surprise me that he so often just holds up the standing narrative. Do you read Ann Barnhart?
I try to whenever someone posts a new link.
She was very critical of COVID-19, I think, from even the beginning. I can't remember too specifically, but she's always very counter-current, and so she was good in that. Let's see, what other big media outlets? How about the Remnant or Catholic Family News? What was their position?
I didn't really see anything about them on the COVID, but
I can't remember anything until Chris Farrar started writing something at Fatima Perspectives. I think he was the first of the trad, because Remnant and Catholic Family Media are the old school 2 columns of the Catholic trad thing. How about Angelus Magazine? Do you read Angelus Press there from Kansas? No?
no.
I don't know if they covered it at all. Let's see what other main outlets are. I know Frank Walker on Canon 212, very good. He did a lot of commentary. He was the first to call it a stunt, the COVID stunt, and start marking it. He was like, I think of all the Catholic media in the English-speaking world, the one who really led the charge against the narrative. And he did a wonderful job, and he gets too little thanks for that. He just completely understands the left and knows how to go after him. But I was surprised to learn that Frank Walker was like a stand-up comedian, I don't know, a saxophonist or something like that, a musician, and that's why he's so good with off-the-cuff remarks and stuff. Who else is there in Catholic media in the United States that's influential?
Got the Gordon brothers, Tim and Dave Gordon.
Yeah, you're a fan of them. What did they say about COVID-19, and how did their view of it change?
They were pretty, cautious, wanted to learn more, make sure it was, see what really going on. And once the truth started to roll out, then they started to blast it like everybody else in the church. Like, we got to open up these churches. We just can't live without the sacraments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. They're usually pretty controversial and rather free thinkers. I was really upset about what Roddy Trelli tried to do by pretending that churches were closed in Philadelphia during the Spanish flu, and I wrote an article blasting him on it, because I had relatives in that city during the flu, and one of them died of it. And I know what he was saying was complete lie. And I proved from a book that they were liars. And I heard they went bonk. That Roraticelli guy,
Yes.
because he called himself New Catholic, just went crazy. But most people don't know that Roraticelli is a blog started by a former political operative of a Canadian politician. And I think he lives somewhere in London, Ontario, or something like that. He's not American at all. And he's a very clever fellow. He started his blog by giving everyone links to make himself appear like he's associated with everyone. I remember giving a link to Franciscan Archive site I started back in '96. It was one of the first Catholic sites. Been out there the longest time, though it's pretty much. I don't do anything on it anymore. And he gained the confidence of everyone. Then he started to push a narrative, because most of these guys are all about narrative control. Even LifeSite News. LifeSite News founder Weston, he was an atheist. He left the practice of the faith when he was in his teenage years because he didn't agree with church teaching. I don't know what church teaching he doesn't really said. Then all of a sudden he had a conversion and he became Catholic. But all his family and relatives are ultra liberals, so he's always worried about what to say because he doesn't want to offend them. But he's one to hold the narrative. And on what was LifeSite doing on the COVID-19? Were they following the narrative? Were they criticizing it from the beginning?
They're pretty much, I'd say they were pretty much following it and sharing what the Pope Bergoglio's been saying. And one of the shows I tried to watch of his interviews was with Stephen Ray, the guy who does the tours in Jerusalem and all over. And he's like, Stephen Ray blasted Bergoglio. I'm like, okay.
How did Weston take that?
I didn't get to that part. I just couldn't get through his monologue.
Yeah. The Weston is, I think, half Indonesian. I think his mother's from East Timor, which is a former colony of Portugal Catholics. And but once LifeSite News got influential, he and others founded a thing called the Family Council, something like the Family Council on the Family, which is a group of so-called pro-life groups around the world. But through that organization, they've maintained narrative control over a lot of apostolates all around the world in the Catholic-speaking world. And it's very Marxist, very political, and he just has certain doctrinal points. He blacklists you if you don't follow his narrative. And I know eminent pro-lifers who've done far more work in pro-life than he has ever done, and he won't even pick up the phone to them. That's how contemptuous he is. So he's another newbie on the block. I think 10, 12 years ago, no one ever heard of LifeSite News, and why LifeSite News, a pro-life apostolate, is trying to control the whole narrative on who is Pope and is not Pope, and canon laws to be observed or not. Doesn't really make any sense. They're supposed to stick to their topic, which is pro-life, but they're definitely into narrative control. These kind of things in Catholic media, which, see, I've been on the net since 1993. I put my order, Franciscan Friars of the Immaculate, on the internet. I prepared a DVD to get everyone on the internet, all the houses of the order. So I've been there a long time, and since '96, since February of '97, the Franciscan Archives have been out there 23 years doing an apostolate. I've seen a lot of things come and go, and what I think irks me the most is some of these newbies think that they are the source of all doctrine. Some of them don't even have degrees in theology, and the ones who do, I don't think have ever read a complete systematic theology ever. They seem to not know the most basic things, and they put forward their own opinion as dogma. But they're highly connected, like Taylor Marshall's on EWTN, and probably because or his former Opus Dei.
Yeah, I see this a lot, hear it a lot when I watch the videos. Oh, we got to be Thomas philosophy. Then Brother Andre Marie, the first show he did, telling the truth about the philosophy of Pope John Paul II, how Thomism is not about Saint Thomas Aquinas. It is about Saint
John of
another
St.
Dominican.
Thomas.
Yeah, there.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with Saint Thomas Aquinas.
Mhm. No, it
I was
doesn't.
like, yes.
Yeah, that modern Thomism is they're trying to make it something, make him something. Most people don't know that St. Thomas Aquinas, even when he wrote his Summa Theologica, not many people, I mean, it was praised by the popes, but it wasn't really thought to be that great because it was so Aristotelian. It was saying things that were against the fathers. Like people often don't say St. Thomas fell into some horrible errors. He holds that it's not irrational to hold that the world is eternal. And Bonaventure blasts him on that without naming him. It proves that it is irrational. And these people who think that the one master of all in the church is St. Thomas and not Jesus Christ are just like, I don't know, but it's kind of like people always willing to rally around a banner of some creature rather than the creator. So this, I think, shows us how important Ordo Militaris Radio TV is going to be for Catholic media, because in the United States, we have very little free Catholic media that really intends to say the truth without any control from any group. And this is the wonderful objective of Ordo Militaris Radio. And I'm glad you're starting this apostolate, AJ, and I wish you many years of success, and I hope to help you do some programs for it. What are some of your dreams or views or upcoming plans for this new radio TV apostolate?
Well, on the radio side, chosen a very awesome internet radio system from Radio Co, where Ordo Militaris Radio TV will be actually a station name where we can have unlimited hours of content. We can run the programs 24/7. So it's like a real radio station. We can have at least 10 different radio hosts doing their own show. So hopefully we can find other people who want to join us, do their shows, and keep it true to Ordo Militaris Radio, hard-hitting Catholic talk radio, and blast some errors and blast some heresies and blast some whatever. And one big interview I'd like to do is with the niece of Marine Le Pen, Marion Marshall, who spoke that amazing speech at CPAC. Was it? Where she talked her love of France, the eldest daughter of the church, and get her take on what's going on in France. See how these riots are spreading everywhere, and see how it's hurting France, and if she, run for president, save France, fix the country, kick the bad people out.
That's the real wonderful thing about independent radio TV. You'll be able to give voice to a lot of these people who have no voice because the media will not interview you. They will not. A prime example of this, just in the last few days here in Rome, I was interviewed by a major newspaper, the Libero, on Pope Benedict's renunciation, how it's invalid. The translation of the article is now been done in English, and no Catholic media apostolate in the English-speaking world is going to republish it. They don't want to even mention it. It's absolutely verboten to even discuss that it might invalid. You must be for Bergoglio no matter what. Even though he's a raving heretic and apostate and the Antichrist, you must be for him. And that shows you how absolutely psychotic these people are. They are refusing reality. They're even refusing the concept of free speech or following the laws of the church just because, what? I don't know. It's not like someone has a gun to their head.
Yeah. And who's that professor who was on with Taylor Marshall to get him really thinking that Benedict is still the Pope?
Dr. Matza, yeah.
Yeah. And once he was on that show, on with Dr. Taylor Marshall, tweet after tweet after tweet, people apologizing to us who were thinking Benedict and believing Benedict is the Pope, saying, "Oh man, we are so sorry for what we've done to you." I was like, wow. Even Father Z, he put out a nice article. He's explaining what Benedict's possible thinking was, how Peter wasn't in Rome at the time as the Pope when he was given the keys. He was still in Philippi, Caesarea, when Jesus gave him the keys. So he was Pope at that moment, but wasn't in Rome.
Yeah, I like Dr. Matza. He's gotten a lot of people to think and realize that Benedict still considers himself the Pope, which is what many of the people have been saying right from the start in Europe, and which Anne Barnard has championed here in the English-speaking world in the United States. I think she's in the United States, although I continue to hear she might be living in Tuscany. So I'm not sure of the rumors where she is. But one thing I want to point out to everyone is the Pope cannot separate the papacy from the Church of Rome. And the presentation Dr. Matza is giving errs on a major theologic point. I want to explain this, even though it has nothing to do with our video because it's so common now, no one's hearing it. When Christ founded the church, Christ was head of the church. But when he ascended to heaven, Peter became actively his vicar on earth. At that moment, there was only one diocese in the whole world. It was the entire world. And there was only one head of that diocese. It was Peter. But then after Pentecost, the apostles started founding churches. They founded the Church of Jerusalem, and Peter appointed St. James to be the Bishop of Jerusalem. Peter, after that, was not the head of the church in Jerusalem. That was St. James, because the brother of the Lord. We're talking about James the Minor. And then Peter went to Christians, pagans started converting in Antioch. So Peter went to Antioch and he founded the Diocese of Antioch. And he was the first bishop of Antioch. And that diocese still exists, even though the city has been completely destroyed. The Patriarch of Antioch lives in Beirut, Lebanon, I think to say.
Except,
I think there's 3 who claim the title now, but Beirut, Lebanon.
Except,
Peter came
except
to
the, except the church where St. Peter actually became the Bishop of Antioch. We found the actual photos of that church.
Oh, that's right.
And you can still go to that church and still have masses done at the church.
Yeah. So God has preserved the Church of Peter. So that's an important point. But as for the Church of Rome, although we often say that the Church of Rome was founded by Peter and Paul, that is actually incorrectly said, because the Diocese of Rome was never separated from St. Peter's jurisdiction. All the other dioceses were separated from that, but never the Diocese of Rome, because the first bishop of Rome was Peter. And Peter didn't separate Rome from the church, all the other dioceses. He separated all the other dioceses from his jurisdiction as Pope. And so Rome, that's why St. Gregory VII says of the Church of Rome that the Church of Rome was founded by Jesus Christ, because it is like the primary part of the mystical body. It's the part that was never separated from Peter. And for that reason, I say it's heresy to say a pope can divide the Petrine office from the Church of Rome, because the Church of Rome is the whole Catholic Church in a small package, the original whole thing in the small original package. And Christ attached Peter's office to his church can never be separated. It's a matter of divine ordinance, divine right, that they're joined together. But Dr. Matza, Dr. Taylor Marshall, and everyone running with this theory, and Barnhart, Mark Doherty, they need to know what the Church of Rome is. The Church of Rome is not another diocese. The Church of Rome is the Catholic Church, and that's why the office of Peter can never be separated. However, Dr. Matza has a good point is, what does it appear that Pope Benedict did, okay? Because what it appears he did and what he did don't have to be the same thing, okay? So I could go to the store and people say, oh, he went to the store and do his shopping, but that's not what I did. I went there to talk to a friend under the appearance of going to shopping because I didn't want to know anyone who was there talking with. So what one does in appearance may not be what they're really doing. And I think Dr. Matsu, Mark Doherty, and Barnhart, myself, we all agree on that. What he's doing is not resigning, but it's making it appear as if he's resigning something. What I don't like about Dr. Matsu's, the reaction to Dr. Matsu's thesis is some people want Bergoglio as Pope and Benedict as Pope. So they say, well, this way I can say Bergoglio is the head of is the supreme pontiff, but Benedict's still the Pope, kind of like a double truth theory. And you can't do that in the Catholic faith. There's only one Pope. And if Benedict's Pope, Bergoglio's nothing. He's not the Bishop of Rome. The cardinals have no authority to elect a bishop of Rome. They only have authority to elect the successor of St. Peter, okay? They can't elect one thing without the other. It's not how it works, okay? So, excuse me, I had to say that because just the reactions are like spinning out of control on that thing. But at least he's gotten people to think, and that's good.
Yeah. Well, how's the media over there about these riots?
I can't say that I know much about what the reaction to. There's not riots going on in Italy. Okay, there was a political rally here in the Piazza del Popolo a few days ago, and I think they got a couple thousand come out. But Italians are not people that really riot. If there's any riots in Italy, it would be like foreigners. I mean, there were riots years ago, but presently no. But there's no possible way for riots to spread from Minneapolis to France, to Australia, to around the globe. It's just impossible. It's not like it's the same people live in Minneapolis that live around the globe. The only thing that connects them is international Marxism.
Yeah.
Between parties. That's the only thing that connects these riots. And it seems to me it's part of the lockstep Rockefeller plan. They want social disorder because they want a militarized state. They want to force that vaccine down your throat and into your arm, and they want to make you a piece of cattle that they can control. They're really vicious pieces of dirt. And Bill Gates is an absolute megalomaniac psychopath. He needs to be arrested. Soros and all the Rockefellers and everyone in the Bilderberg organization, they're complete psychopaths. And unfortunately, Bergoglio is completely lockstep in with them. The churches here in Italy, it's all masks, gloves, no communion in the tongue. You have to commit the sacrament of receiving our Lord in the hands. A lot of Catholics, not a small number, I think about a third of us are not going to church at all because we're not going to participate in that kind of mockery of the Catholic religion. But that means we have no clergy. And the clergy, I'd say 99.99% of the clergy have apostatized. They are all following the new mass that comes down from the government. They don't care anything more about the rubrics of the old mass from time of Christ, or even the old mass. Even priests who say the Tridentine Mass are going with the government. Or if they don't go with the government, they do it so secretly, you don't know who they are or where they are, and so consequently you can't go to mass.
Yeah. Yeah, that's happening here too. People are either they have somehow or have the inside knowledge of where these new catacomb masses are, or they just don't go to mass because, well, they don't want to receive in the hand and not wear the mask and go with the rules.
They open the doors and let you stand outside if you don't want to wear the mask?
That I don't know. But yeah, it's been right before Lent since I received our Lord in the Eucharist. Right when all this started and all the churches shut, we were right right before the Holy Week uh, communal penance service, where you about a few 5, 6 priests comes in and all the confessions are heard, Lenten missions are preached, and right then and there, the doors were shut. Masses and confession were canceled. And it's finally did get to go to confession one time. It was just my dad and I and the priest, and that was it. And no gloves, no masks, just go in, go to confession. A few minutes before our Lord in the tabernacle, and back out and go home.
There in western Kansas, where the Catholic parishes are small because Catholics aren't a majority, how are those little parishes going to survive if they were closed down for so many months without anyone coming and giving donations?
I don't know. I don't really know, because it also funds what there is of a Catholic school in town that teaches to preschool up to high school level. So I don't know how they all got funding or donations or whatever.
Did they close the school during the lockdown?
Yep.
Even in a small rural town? That means like makes no. Did you have any victims of COVID-19 in your county?
No.
So it was completely useless then.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? We're safe here, because no one's actually getting sick. No one's really doing nothing, and just like going about our business unless we get caught.
Hmm. Here in Rome, which is a city of more than 1 million, I think there was only like 100 cases. And the only two I heard of were people already in old folks' homes. There was no one here in the section of Rome at all here that got sick at all. So it was a complete waste of time here too. It's
Yeah.
totally insane. I am surprised though that Trump allowed the lockdown of the United States. I'm very surprised that
Yeah.
he folded on that. That's one of the greatest failures of his presidency, I think.
You know what caused him to do that was Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx coming into the Oval Office with the numbers from the Imperial College of London, saying, "We gotta shut down, we're gonna shut down."
The Imperial
And
College of London is a Rockefeller front. It's not scientific at all. It's complete academic fraud. But, you know, Trump, when he was running for office, he said one good thing, that if he had followed through, he would have never suffered all the things he suffered. And that was, I'm going to drain the swamp. He did not drain the swamp. He took swamp creatures into his administration, and he's been bitten by them all in the butt.
yeah,
And uh, been his greatest failure. He needs to clean up his act, and if he gets reelected, he has to stop that. There are so many good, honest, intelligent, upright people in the country that could serve the president. I don't know why he has swamp creatures around him. I just don't know it at all.
even the generals, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, are rebelling, mutiny against him controlling and bringing peace and order to DC.
He should
Like,
fire them all. He's too. I don't know why on The Apprentice show he fires people right away, but as president, it's like he takes 18 months after being insulted by someone to fire them. He should fire
yeah,
them the same day. I mean, I don't know why he puts up with that. Uh, but he was a Democrat his whole life. Only recently became Republican, so maybe that
yeah,
has something to do with it.
yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to Order Militaris Radio TV. I don't know if I'll have time to do a whole program, but I can certainly come on every week. But I want to invite everyone listening to this video, if you've ever wanted to do radio, TV, and produce programs, then contact AG at ordo-militaris.net and volunteer to do some programming. And it's a new venture, and it has a bright future, because as you can see from what's going on in the world, independent media is going to rule in the next 10 years. It's going to have an explosive growth. People have lost complete and absolute confidence in anything in mainline media. So this is the future of media. This is the future of Catholic media. And if you want to be part of that future, I encourage you to contact AJ and volunteer to produce some programming. Especially you bloggers out there. There are a lot of very intelligent Catholics that write excellent blogs. And if you do a radio program, the world would benefit of your wisdom more than just the little things you write in your blog. And since you are a blogger, you know how to write, you know how to talk, you know how to speak. So you're the right kind of person to go on to radio. So I encourage you, contact AJ and make Ordo Militaris Radio TV something that in 10 years everyone will say is the premier source of news in the English-speaking world for Catholics.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for doing this video interview, Brother Alexis. And,
My pleasure.
Yep. And see you all next time on Ordo Militaris Radio TV.
God bless.
God bless and Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.